Hello everyone and welcome to this month's Making D&D. This month I'm going to be making the rare item in Dungeons & Dragons known as the Staff of Charming. Let's get started. Now, what do we know about this staff? We know that it's a rare item and can be used as a magic quarterstaff. It does have 10 charges which you can use to charm, person, command, or comprehend languages, which is pretty sweet. If you want a full visual of what this staff looks like outside of the book, you do have to go to D&D Beyond or, Google to see the full tapered look of what this staff looks like, or the artist's representation of what this staff looks like. And so based off of this representation, this is the kind of staff we are going to make. I know you saw it 2 seconds ago, but the rest of this video is just making this staff and all the parts that go into making it. First step in all my processes, especially when I'm trying to create a bigger prop, is I take a piece of paper roughly the size of what I'm going to go for, what I'm trying to make, and I actually draw right on the piece of paper so I have a visual reference. This will help when we're making all the heart embellishments and all the embellishments that go around the actual staff, as well as comparing our taper as we're trying to get that taper and the cross up above. This will be a rough guide, right? It won't be the final, but it will be great. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you my drawing out process. This whole entire staff is going to be about 6 feet tall from tapered wooden end to top of cross point. So let's get cracking. So first steps first, carving out these crosses. I'm gonna try and do what I normally don't do on all my other projects, which is start with what I think is gonna be the hardest thing. And I think these crosses, especially to cross on the top part of the staff, is gonna be the hardest thing for me, considering that I don't necessarily have some of the badass tools that you'd want to have to do this project, or to make this project just a little bit easier. But since a lot of people don't have those tools, we're gonna get to getting. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to show you the process of laying out the top cross on my dowel, and then show you how I'm gonna go about testing a process to make the top point, and that will hopefully lead me to a good process for the two sides. Let's do it. So I am going to start with this top point. I'm going to test out a process for actually carving it into this dowel. My goal here is to try and make it not so difficult. So first steps first is I'm going to put the dowel on the center of the point, and I'm going to draw the curve and the shape with which I want to cut these sides out. Now, does that mean that I'm not going to come back and taper the top and the bottom? No, but the first step truly is I'm going to try and get this taper and a lovely point happening, or an arrow point happening at the top, and then go back and taper the top and the bottom to match. So first, I always like to draw it out in pencil, because I'm a worrywart and I'm always worried that I'm gonna mess it up. And if you don't draw it perfectly, look, it might not be perfectly symmetrical, but that's okay, because what we'll do is once we get a side that we like, we will copy it over using rulers, probably, and then this detail right here, this golden detail, will probably get put on last. So I'm really trying to get this curve going, hoping to not make this point right here, where it's the slimmest, start to cause a problem. You can really see in points like that where that could be a point of cracking within the wood. You know, you don't want that, duh. And then I'm gonna make sure that I like this shape. Just gonna draw a line. And then I will carve in the top and bottom, because what I really want this to do is, not only do I want it to look good side to side tapering in, but I also want it to taper like this on the top and the bottom. And you'll see what I mean once I get there. These are some of the tools I used. So I used a jigsaw, my Dremel, palm sander, screw gun to put in my jig to hold it in place, clamps, hearing protection, mask for sanding, obviously, sanding blocks, and sandpaper to all get that taper. So now that we have gotten our top to look exactly how we want it to, I marked out as we go down the staff. I'm gonna cut in these two sides, and then I'm gonna go through and kind of just rip off a little bit of the side dowel before I start sanding it down to get the eventual curve that we are looking for. So we've done this, check. Now we're gonna come down and do this curve right here and this taper that goes down to the widest area right here. I'm not gonna do this taper where we connect to the middle dowel, because I'm going to connect the middle dowel to this top one, glue it together, and then do that taper once it is together, so that I make sure that I don't take off too much material before those two pieces are together. Alright, so we've done the top point. We've done the taper that is happening down here. We are not going to do this connecting taper right now until it is all glued together. But I did mark out the cuts for the middle portion and the lower portion. I will be doing the taper for the bottom. As you can see, it's kind of falling off the table, which is fine, no big deal. I'll move the template down. But the next step is to glue these together once this bottom taper is done. How I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to use the same method that I used for the Tarrasque scroll. I'm going to get a dowel that I like the size of, and I'm going to actually drill out holes in the top and bottom and insert the dowel with a whole bunch of glue and let it dry, clamp together overnight so that it's all good together. Then come back, sand, make the tapers look all beautiful, and then staining tomorrow. Alright, so I already drilled the hole in this end, which will go right here. I've marked it out. That is my space to put the hole. I already have my dowel that I'm going to insert ready to go, as well as the glue. So let's do it. right, one last sanding. As you can see, need to do some sanding right there, some sanding right there, a little bit of sanding right there, and then we are good to start the staining process. Woo! Alright, so now that I am waiting for stuff to dry, as always, I decided that I'd cut out and start working on the foam templates for all of the things that are going to be attaching to this. Because it's going to be stained and painted, well, it's going to be stained separately, and these are going to be made and then sprayed. I wanted to make them. So what I did was I just started by cutting out, I labeled all my pieces that I thought I was gonna label, or that I thought I was gonna make separately, and then I just started making pieces. So I made 4 and 5, which is this piece right here, which are gonna be glued together, and then I might have to add a little wedge right here for this side. I also started working on a mock-up for the piece that goes right about here. I think this goes down a little bit further, but there's a piece that goes right here, and I'm working on a mock-up for that. It's just like a little tester for a side. It's just 2 pieces together that I beveled, and then I beveled this side, and now I'm gonna try and mark it out, seeing how it's going to actually attach to the staff right here on the angle, based off of the drawing we have of the staff. Alright, so a little change of venue to finish this staff off, but I wanted to show you kind of exactly how I'm gonna lay this out and how I'm gonna cut out all the embellishments. So as you can see on the actual Staff of Charming visual, it does have all these golden details, which I'm gonna do in the very thin EVA foam. The reason being is because I think that even with a little bit of bump out, and I'm gonna bevel the edges, I think it'll look really cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut out all the pieces and then spray them, you know, seal the EVA foam, paint it gold, do like the first paint of gold on the edges and on just the first round, and then go. What you can see though is that I have marked my staff after staining it to show exactly where I'm gonna put all of these pieces once they are there, so I can cut them to size on the actual staff itself. So I'm gonna take all these extra small chunks of foam that I have left over from other projects, and I'm going to go through and cut. We only have a visual of one side, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave excess on my side so that I can wrap it around and create a cool design on the back that looks maybe not the same, but is just as cool. Alright, so sometimes you get to a point in the project where you're working on some pretty complex stuff and you need to be at the top of your game. Obviously, a couple hours ago I was not on the top of my game. As you can see, I have a full completed heart right here. It's going to get filled. It's going to get all of its great stuff polished up real nice, sanded up real good, and it's going to look great. But you can see that I have this extra piece. When I cut out these first pieces together, cut 2 of the same side, even though I thought I didn't. So, a reminder that everyone messes up. It's okay. Sometimes you need to step away. Sometimes you can just come back and crush it. Know which one you're on. And with that, I'm gonna go fill these and we're gonna keep going because this stuff gotta be made. Okay, so for this project, you can see from the image, reference image, that there is all this design right here. And so at my local craft store, I found this awesome stencil, which I thought looked perfect, and I thought would work perfect, but alas. So I tried to use the stencil as it was with a flat top brush and push through the stencil, but the stencil is a little too weak to create those strong lines that we are looking for. So what I did, I tested this off camera just because I don't need that stress in my life, and I just drew out the stencil lines on my staff, and this is the route I'm gonna go. So I'm literally gonna draw out all my lines right here, paint them, and keep going for a couple of sections. So there's this section right here, which I'm working on right now. Then there's this section, and this section. So 4 sections, and I'm going to then attach foam after the foam has been sanded and go from there. So now that we've done the underlying painting, it is time to attach all of our pieces. I actually waited, so some of these pieces like this are gonna need a back plate to them, but I'm going to actually create that once the pieces are attached in the placement that I like, and then I'll sand it all together. I haven't decided whether I'm covering them in thermoplastic or if I'm just gonna spray them. We will see. It's getting a little warm today, so that might be the perfect time to plasti dip if I can get time. So let's get started. All right, so now that it is completely sanded, I am gonna go through and do a part that I have never done on a staff like this before, which is I'm going to put thermoplastic over all of the foam pieces just to give them more rigidity, especially with these points. If they get hit, you know, there's nothing that's gonna save them. So I'm gonna very cautiously and slowly add thermoplastics using my heat gun and Wonderflex. This is the process of actually Wonderflexing those ovals and what I'm going to be using for the rest of the project. I am coming out with a separate EVA foam tutorial about thermoplastics and how to cover them correctly. But what I'm doing here is I'm primarily using that heat gun to provide flex to the Wonderflex and then draping it across. I found it quite easy when I was using it on the staff to place the piece over top of the EVA foam and then heat it and then use that to patch it out. Wonderflex is really great because it is a little bit cheaper, but it also is very moldable and thicker. It has a webbing on the back of it, so it makes it super awesome. Now that we have a solid gold color, which is exactly what we want, it is time to make it look aged. I like props that have age on them, so I'm going to use some of the black in with the gold and sponge it on to give it that dimension and texture. I will also probably highlight some areas with a white to give it that gling. Even though this isn't metal, it doesn't mean we can't make it look almost exactly like metal. And the big things that I'm going to focus on are the lines. So there's a couple of line donations in there. And then there's also what looks to be runes or details around the heart. So I am going to copy those lines as much as possible. What I'll probably do is actually copy those on a piece of paper and then work my way around so that can get going. But I will show you the process of aging some of the pieces and get to getting. Although I don't actually have a video for this, I did the same process for the rune styling around the heart that I did for my hammer. I used a combination of gold and black Sharpie to create those lines that you saw on that paper. And that's how I actually created those, although I forgot to take a video of it. The final part of this staff is to add these spotted details along here. What's great if you use flexible paint on top of your Wonderflex or any sort of thermoplastic means that if you need to reheat it to reshape it because it lost its shape, you can do so. So I just took my heat gun, did it not a lot, and then let it kind of fall down like the potato chip it wants to be. It's definitely solidly Pringle looking at the end. And then we're gonna glue it with some contact cement and this staff will be done. Thank you so much for watching this making video. Please let me know what you thought about the staff down below in the comments, or if you've ever actually seen this staff in a Dungeons & Dragons game, because I'd love to hear what kind of character was carrying it, or whether or not you used it in a funny way. That would be hilarious. If you want to know any details about the products that were used, you can check out the description below for the blog post. And as always, happy making.